A crowd of people attends a public execution. The man is burned alive, but it's not the flames that consume him, it's the pain and the anger and the hatred. Sometime before these events, Klein had stood before the queen. She offered him the chance to defeat the Black Dragon Queen, and as a reward, she promised he could become her husband. Klein was excited by this generous offer, and after a while he managed to find the Dragon Queen. The battle wasn't hard. Sir Klein was up to the task and slew the Dragon Queen to cheers from the soldiers congratulating him on his victory. No one had been able to defeat the Dragon Queen for 100 years, and Klein alone did it. A feast was held in honor of the event. The queen personally approached the knight to raise a cup in celebration of his heroism. Before his campaign, Klein had promised he would drink with the queen if he won. The queen remembered her promise, and once he drank with her, his dreams would come true. Klein drank the cup of wine to the last drop, and in that second, he felt something strange. Instead of keeping her promise, the queen poisoned him. The guards surrounded the knight and accused him of inciting the soldiers and trying to spark a rebellion. His loyal companions tried to stop this madness, but their attempts were quickly crushed. A verdict of guilt was issued against Klein, and anyone who defended him would be killed. The knight couldn't even move to resist, and his loyal comrades were powerless because they were outnumbered. The captain of the guard was pleased by this turn of events. That's where it all began. The flames consumed Klein. He laughed in response to the charges of conspiracy and rebellion. The crowd believed it, as usual, the false accusation. As he burned alive, Klein vowed to destroy this damned world. In the end, the fire did its job. After a while, only snow and ash remained in the square. At that moment, a mysterious woman approached the dying fire. She summoned a magical power. Klein's suffering was about to end, and the age of magic was coming. The knight would be given the right to choose once more. A magic circle formed in the sky, and Klein began to rise from the ashes. His first words were, "I will destroy this world." The woman was delighted to hear that. Klein had risen from death, but his body was disfigured. 3 years passed since then. The knight sits on the roof of a building, bored. Won't anything interesting happen here? Suddenly, noise rises in the streets. Finally, it's time for fun. Klein rushes to the center of events. Palace guards are asking citizens to hand over their weapons. There's a little girl sitting near the weapons collection point. One of the knights asks the girl to hand over an unregistered sword. The girl cries and begs them not to take her dead mother's gift. The guard pulls his sword and threatens the child, saying it's an order from His Majesty. The girl refuses to hand over her sword and closes her eyes, afraid to die, so the guard raises his blade to kill her. He swings, but the sword flies from his hand. He looks up to see who did that. Klein is sitting on the roof, mocking the guard and calling himself his master. The people see their savior. This time, his name is no longer Klein. The crowd calls him Shiro. The guard yells at him not to resist, or they won't show any mercy orders from the captain of the guard to arrest him. The guards rush to attack, and at that moment Shiro scatters them all. Only the captain of the palace guard remains, shouting that he will not forgive him. Shiro grabs the guard's hand, telling him he won't let them take the weapons searching for magic shards. The guard pulls a dagger hidden in his sleeve, refusing to be defeated, but it doesn't help. He receives a killing blow. Shiro advises him not to be arrogant, and to leave while he still can, and to let everything go. The guards drop their possessions and run away, screaming that he's a demon, and they stand no chance against him. The little girl thanks Shiro for his help, but he doesn't need thanks. He's no longer the good man he once was, just a noble thief. Shiro addresses the crowd and tells them to take everything the guards left behind. The people cheer and shout his name. At this time, the captain of the palace guard is furious and vows revenge. Moonlight lights the tower. The masked knight is bored. Someone appears out of nowhere and speaks to him, saying that now he's a respectable thief admired by the people, and asks with a soft laugh if he's still bored. The knight replies indifferently that he doesn't care about respect. The important thing is fun. The girl watches thoughtfully, wondering why the strongest knight approaches commoners. A dagger is suddenly stuck into the roof, making a distinctive sound. Shiro feels the priestess mocking him. The dark-haired woman denies mocking the former Lord of Knights, but the knight thinks that even if she's mocking him, he was executed on charges of treason and lost everything. The knight looks at the huge moon and curses his fate. The woman reassures him that as long as he's alive, there's a chance to change things. The rescued knight wonders what motivates his savior. The mysterious Mesios answers evasively that she enjoys other people's suffering. The knight surrenders to his fate and accepts Mesios' help. She reassures him and promises to stand by him no matter what. Scene shifts to Lind Castle, the count's seat. A subordinate informs his lord of the failure, making excuses about the enemy's strength and saying he's someone they can't handle. The angry lord scolds him for his incompetence and throws his glass of juice to break on the floor. The defeated servant begs for forgiveness. The woman next to the lord smirks with gloating. The lord berates James for his repeated failures and that Shiro destroyed their forces. James pleads for one last chance, promising to capture Shiro. The angry lord refuses, ultimately frustrated because he's given James too many chances. The Lord summons warriors to his side. The two warriors approach and bow their heads, ready to carry out the order. Capture Shiro at any cost. The dismissed commander will become an ordinary soldier. He agrees because life is worth more than a paycheck. A view of the city from above. Shiro watches the crowds and the oppression of the common people from the heights. Trouble is about to happen. The blade shards will gather again. The priestess reads a line of prophecy. Shiro grumbles that he doesn't care, and that he didn't become a noble thief to pursue justice, and that he won't do anything foolish. The dark-haired girl shows amusement at Shiro's sarcasm. The unrest returns to the city again. The knight and the girl notice suspicious activity. He's annoyed by the guard's persistence. The priestess notices a change in their behavior. The knight rushes into battle without caring about the reasons. The red-haired knight lands a heavy blow. The townspeople watch the destruction in horror. The house owner says she worked hard to build it. Soldiers demand the townspeople hand over their valuable possessions and say it's an order from the Lord. An old man falls to the ground after being struck by a guard and begs for mercy and calls for Shiro's help. The guard stomps on the poor old man's face. The former officer contemplates his fate, disgusted by that act. The townspeople welcome the approaching knight. When the man sees him, he receives a punch to the jaw. The guard flies a good distance backward. Shiro is ready to confront the city guards, but he didn't expect them to return so quickly. Shiro accepts the challenge of the new guards, promising to be their nightmare. The angry knight attacks with his strongest moves. Shiro stops the strike with only his index finger. The enraged opponent is shocked at his failure despite hitting with all his strength. At that moment, hands emerge from under the ground and grab Shiro's legs. The red-haired man orders to seize the knight. Soldiers rush to carry out the order. Shiro lifts his index finger without panic and begins to glow with a bright pink light. The guard doesn't even realize what's happening. The enemies receive a powerful blow, and Shiro only touched the ground with his finger. Not only did he copy the attacker's technique, but he also managed to amplify it. The armored knight is flung backward with enormous force, nearly crashing through a building, astonished that Shiro possesses a knight's strength. Shiro approaches his opponent, grabs him by the hair, and tells him he has better moves than that. Then he demands answers about what's happening and why they keep looting his town, pressing the guard's head against the wall. The guard refuses to talk. He's loyal to his lord. Shiro decides to remove his mask to tell him the truth. He declares his demonic nature, frightening the captive. The knight reveals his scars and demands an honest answer, or he threatens to destroy the man's entire family and won't spare even his children, feeding them to the dogs. The prisoner agrees in terror and says he will tell him everything. He names his lord and says his lord is interested in the magical artifact Shiro carries. The client wants a magical dagger that emits pink flames. That's all the red-haired guard knows. Shiro lets him go with a final warning that if he does it again, he'll kill his family. The frightened prisoner rushes away, and his men leave the city streets quickly. The knight is left alone, thinking that peace will not last long in this town. There are whispers about a mysterious avenger outside the walls of Lind Castle. Rumors about the noble thief stir the townspeople, who are shocked by his bold methods. There are even stories about the public humiliation of the Count and about him being a noble thief. A mysterious stranger wearing a cloak hides among the crowd. She lifts her hat, revealing her blonde hair. She smiles slyly and whispers to her brother Shiro to wait for her. Her green eyes burn with determination. A knight wearing a red cloak walks through the square, drawing attention. Shiro begins to realize the Count is his new target. Someone calls the knight by name. Shiro turns to look. The girl rushes toward him joyfully because she finally found him. An unexpected shock knocks the knight to the ground. The stranger hugs the knight, amazed by the softness of his body. The angry knight demands an explanation of who she is and why she's bothering him. The girl introduces herself as Carol, a genius swordswoman, and says she wants to help when she heard Shiro was in trouble. The knight coldly refuses her help and tells her to go home. Carol wonders if he's turning her away. The distressed girl reminds him of her long journey and her charm. The knight shoves the annoying girl roughly. He mutters angrily about the strange encounter. Again, the girl attacks him, shouting that she wants to be a noble thief too, and do bad things to bad people. Those around her are shocked by her statement. The knight asks to move away from the crowded street and talk privately. The girl gets angry and demands to come on his next mission. Shiro asks angrily what she wants. The girl takes something from her cloak and suggests using a foul-smelling potion. If he smells it, he won't be able to eat for 3 days. The knight is surprised by her madness. The girl talks about the terrible effects of the potion. Shiro is interested in the idea and agrees to take her with him. But instead of making her a thief, the knight promises to teach her how to have fun. The girl is surprised by the unexpected turn. Carol screams with joy, and now they discuss the plan for a surprise raid on the Lord, and he asks her opinion. Isn't it fun? She answers yes. Meanwhile, in the palace, the guards report the unfortunate incident. The troubling news throws the Count into despair. The man pulls his hair in anger that he couldn't gather the shards. His fear of Lord Cain is obvious. The angry lord blames his subordinates for the failure. The guards listen in terror to his angry speech about how they can't catch a single thief. But there's more bad news. A defiant girl invaded the house and caused chaos. The lord is furious at the appearance of uninvited guests. A girl attacked the guards with some unknown substance in a cunning way. The knights fell victim to the unusual attack. One of the knights reports this to the Count. The bearded man growls, angry, and asks who would do such a thing. A red cloak flashes through the air, soaring above the enemy. Upon landing, the Count asks the armored warrior before him who he is. Shiro looks at the Count and greets him rudely. The bearded man grabs the hilt of his sword. The Count did not expect to face the thief again. Shiro lunges at the Count. The knight grabs his enemy by the throat, and the bearded man growls in pain. A knight wearing a red cloak pins the Count against the wall. The Count tells him he won't be able to run. The bearded man smiles slightly and asks Shiro to wait, suggesting they just talk. The Count signals his soldiers to help subdue the knight. The armored guards begin to approach. Shiro looks down on the guards with contempt and asks, "Do you think they can beat me?" He signals Carol for help. The girl enters the hall, opening the doors with her foot. The young woman's arrival excites everyone. Carol throws a bottle of some unknown substance at the guards. Something disgusting splatters everywhere. The guards recoil in horror. The smell is unbearable. One of the knights can't stand it and vomits. The knight unleashes his strength on his opponent, while the female knight kicks the defeated enemy with her foot, taking revenge for the townspeople. The interrogation begins. Shiro starts asking about the supposed Mako tool and tells him there's no hope now. The Count tries to gauge how serious the boy's motives are. At that moment, a blade stabs the Count's arm. The man screams in pain as he realizes Shiro isn't joking. Either he tells everything he knows, or Shiro will break his bones. The Count screams in pain and agrees to tell everything. The knight feels a threat approaching. An unknown man throws something at the knight. Shiro can't block the attack. The projectile flies between his fingers. A needle embeds in the Count's body. The fat man screams and writhes in agony. Shiro miscalculated and didn't take enough caution. He couldn't stop the attack. The red-cloaked knight tries to chase his attacker, but realizes with annoyance that the target has successfully escaped. Carol looks at the Count. The man lies dead on the ground and the girl glares triumphantly. The blue-haired knight coldly looks at the defeated man. The Count's face contorts in a grimace of terror. The poison from the needle kills him quickly, though it looks extremely painful. What a miserable end. In another scene, the mysterious man who attacked asks, "Did you deal with that idiot?" John Doe replies, "The operation succeeded," confident in his poison. The angry man orders them to speed things up, and says it was foolish to think they could handle the matter. Of the two remaining shards, one is already in Shiro's possession. The old man smiles evilly, sensing the challenge. Shiro must be killed and the shards gathered that will unleash the power of the royal Mako. You'll become the strongest in the world, and I will put an end to that. The Count is dead. Looting begins. The raiders grab the treasure greedily, shouting as they fight over the spoils. Two people watch from the roof. Is Shiro satisfied with the scene? Does he feel better? He answers that the villain's fall boosted his morale. Carol admires her brother's strength and celebrates the victory on the roof. The knight promises more entertainment. A woman warns of consequences and says those who supported the Count won't stay quiet. Shiro replies, there's nothing to fear, and he doesn't see them as a threat. Carol gets excited for the next fight, saying the more enemies, the more fun. The priestess smiles slightly, expecting another revenge and a rain of blood to fall on the town. Reporters broadcast an urgent bulletin that Lord Han announced Shiro has killed the Count. The townspeople praise Shiro. Carol tells Shiro about the praise. Shiro is surprised by the unexpected fame. The knight reads an invitation from Cain to come within 2 days. Carol is shocked that Lord Cain invites them to dinner. The knight suspects a trap but agrees. They'll deal with whatever comes. The knight promises more entertainment, expecting it to be stronger than before. Meanwhile, the heavy door is pushed open violently. Torchlight is visible below. A man looks at the girl in the bottle and calls her Aisha. He says, even though she's only 4 years old, she's still beautiful. The two men discuss Lord Cain's invitation and wonder if Shiro will come. Cain knows Shiro's pride will make him show up, even if it's a trap. Whether he leaves alive or not is another story. The follower says Shiro is skilled, and eliminating him will be difficult. The white-haired giant replies scornfully to the warning, asking, do you think this is just a trap? Cain summons the monster's power, the cursed lion's power. Fierce tongues of flame burst forth. A beast chained and surrounded by magic appears. The witness is terrified when he sees the lion's power. The villain makes an experimental weapon from 6 shards by merging the purple flame blade shard with an ordinary lion shard. The fire lion roars ferociously, showing its strength. The unknown man looks at the spiritual power of a single shard in horror, saying if he gathers all the shards, he'll destroy the world and fulfill their dream. The villain's face twists into an evil smile and he says, "Even so, someone isn't with us anymore. It is a providence filer felonit." Shiro arrives at the castle. People look at him and whisper. He truly plans to speak with Lord Kane. The crowd makes way for the guest. Lord Kane greets Shiro. Kane remembers all the knight's glorious deeds. Shiro is honored by the Lord's attention and being remembered. The knight affirms that everyone's contributions to building the castle will be remembered. The leader invites everyone to build a better future together, then announces food and drink are ready and to enjoy themselves. The guests gladly accept the invitation to the feast. Servants announce the food is ready. Mountains of roast pork await in the hall. The host suggests they not be shy and eat as much as they want. The knight refuses the food, puzzling his companion. The girl happily offers to eat the food herself. The scary warrior stares suspiciously at the knight and tells him, "It seems you don't trust us." Shiro accuses the warriors of deceit, saying he saw it the moment Klein was killed. The warriors are shocked by the knight's words. Kine asks the real purpose of the visit, then puts his feet on the table and raises his blade, but an air needle pierces through, aiming at the seated man. Carol blocks the attack, defending her brother. Shiro asks them, "Is the play over?" The colorful-haired warrior mocks his opponent and orders his men to kill the insolent man. The knights attack, but Shiro doesn't care. He taunts them with contempt that they'll remain tools no matter how much time passes. A powerful punch from Shiro shakes the hall. Kane parries that blow. The knight smiles, expecting a fight. Shiro releases dark energy. Angry Kane calls for help from his advisor and summons the sleeping beast. A bestial roar echoes through the palace. The knight examines the summoned creature. Kane tells Shiro to surrender because he won't understand how he reached this level. The old man with the burning gaze orders the lion to attack the guest. The fire lion charges with an angry roar and flames consume everything around it. Shiro smiles. "You're too soft." The beast glows with destructive pink energy. The knight dodges the attack and continues provoking the beast. The beast roars and fires a stream of energy toward the youth. Shiro flies away, destroying everything in his path. The crowd cheers. Kane is not invincible. The winner mocks the defeated Shiro. Kane scolds Shiro, saying he should blame himself for being conceited and daring to face him suddenly. A great figure rises from the dust, scattering piled rocks off his body. The old man looks in horror at what's happening. He marvels at the power of the awakened being. Shiro's misshapen body appears, and he says it's been a long time since he's seen a first-rate powerful beast. The evil look in his eyes foretells something terrible. Kane orders the enemy's destruction. The beast begins to roar more fiercely. Shiro sneers with contempt, then stands in front of the beast. He suddenly takes a fighting stance when he sees the lion approach. Shiro charges to face the lion, saying he's good at hunting monsters, and lands a crushing blow that sends the lion flying past its master's back. Kane refuses to lose and summons the power of ghostly chains. A vortex of dark energy swallows everything around it, trapping the knight surrounded by malicious spirits. Kane tells him he'll die quickly, and they won't leave him until they drain his life, but Shiro just smiles without losing his composure. Suddenly, a powerful fire explosion pushes back the dark energy, and the knight can move again. Kane is shocked by the young knight's abilities. Shiro closes the distance to his opponent as fast as he can and says, "It's just that I'm stronger than you," then lands a swift strike to Kane's jaw, resulting in a powerful blast that sends the enemy flying backward. Kane can't understand how the knight got such power. It seems Shiro is somewhat a summoned spirit too. Then Shiro asks, "Is that all you've got?" Shiro launches another attack, and Kine orders his lion to protect its master at all costs. The pink lion blocks the path to Kine, determined to distract the knight. Shiro lands many punches on the lion until he knocks it down. He doesn't look toward Kane, but Kane is gone. He hears footsteps behind him, and when he turns, he sees Kane fleeing at full speed, but Shiro doesn't intend to let him go. At that moment, the lion rises to its feet again and releases a magical vortex from its mouth, but the knight manages to deflect the energy stream with one fist, the attack scattering throughout the hall. The knight decides to deal with the lion first. Kine has already fled the castle and is rushing through the streets wondering who that man was. Meanwhile, Shiro lands a powerful blow on the lion, unlikely to wake anytime soon, then exits the palace, announcing he's coming while the lion lies behind him unconscious. At that moment on the street, people around recognize the fleeing lord as Lord Kane and are startled by his panic, wondering if Shiro defeated him. Desperate, Kane orders his men to capture the enemy and buy him some time, then attacks with chains studded with ghostly skulls. The trapped people try to free themselves in terror as the townsfolk cry in agony while their lives are being drained. Shiro has already caught up to his enemy and tries to help the poor villagers Kane trapped. The knight looks at the townspeople they're begging for help, and Kane realizes in horror that they're dying. The enemy smiles a wicked smile, daring Shiro's emotions. Will he leave them to die? But Shiro knows what Kane is trying to do. He's only trying to buy time. Shiro doesn't fall for the provocation. He's come back from hell, and such tricks won't work on him. Ignoring the civilians' lives, the warrior attacks. Cain is shocked by the enemy's decision. Blades clash in a fierce battle. Cain's sword cracks, and then breaks from the powerful blow. The knight attacks violently and sends his opponent flying backward, sending Cain's body smashing through a wall. Rage distorts the old warrior's face as Shiro declares the end of the game. Suddenly, the same mysterious killer who uses needles appears above his head. The youth turns to watch the desperate attempts to pierce his body with poisonous needles, and with a wave of his hand, Shiro redirects his opponent's attack. Two evil laughs echoed, and dark magic wrapped the knight in purple chains. He tried in terror to free himself from his bonds. Meanwhile, Lord Cain was trying to escape again. The heavy doors of Cain's castle cell opened. Cain returned to his beloved and looked at Aisha the captive in her green cocoon. Tormented by doubts, he wondered what to do. Suddenly, a magic circle formed beneath the Lord, and a purple glow enveloped him. He decided to end it all. The purple energy shattered Aisha's vial. The knight vowed to make her dream come true. Shards plunged into Lord Cain's back, and a dark power flooded the night. He embraced the pink-haired girl. Shiro tried to free himself from the purple chains, and with a sudden move, he tore the magical barrier. Shiro tried to figure out how the stranger had disappeared, leaving only the chains behind. Suddenly, the whole ground began to shake violently, and panic took over the city. Buildings collapsed like paper houses. The girl covered her head with her hands in horror, and one building fell on her, but Shiro shoved her out of danger with his hand. The knight watched the destruction. He knew Cain had done it. Cain's guard squad rushed to the cell, sensing a strange energy. They remembered Cain's mysterious power, and the warriors rushed toward Lord Cain, worried that Shiro might hurt him. At the entrance, the same masked man waited for them. The warriors discussed Shiro's power and the strange energy coming from the basement. The masked man slipped and said that Lord Cain had decided to withdraw after realizing Shiro's strength, and before leaving, he decided to share his wealth with everyone. The warriors rejoiced at Lord Cain's generosity and cheered, praising their leader. The knights entered a closed room to meet Cain. A sudden storm of wind filled the hall, and the whole group was defeated by strange tendrils. A cursed energy flooded the knights, and they screamed in pain. A horrifying monster appeared from the darkness, and it seemed the life force of the warriors was being drained from their bodies. The knights were flung backward by a powerful strike, and the monster tore its way through the cell roof to get out. The monster appeared in the city streets and let out a terrifying howl. The mysterious counselor watched what was happening, flew after the monster, and sneered at the people, calling them fools. The monster attacked the villagers and people scattered in panic. The creature grabbed its victims, sucking the life force from them. Shiro approached the beast and tore the tendrils with a powerful strike, and the stunned villagers fell to the ground. The monstrous creature terrified Misius, and Shiro asked her what this being was. She explained it was a defective magic warrior that absorbs power to make up for its deficiencies. At first Shiro thought it was Cain's pet animal, but the girl objected, saying it was Cain himself. He'd interacted with a shard of the purple flame blade. Had Cain sunk to this level? The beast attacked the youth. The knight prepared for battle, but the monster suddenly changed course, simply turned, and walked the other way. Shiro and the priestess suffered a slight shock. Then she said it seemed to be searching for the lion shard to increase its power. In a fit of anger, Shiro tried to stop the beast and delivered a crushing blow, cutting off several of its tendrils. Shiro chased it and got ready to strike again, but a stream of energy exploded from the beast's mouth. The knight groaned in pain and was thrown back, but he didn't give up. The beast mocked him that he could still fight a little. The monster surged back toward the castle, and the knight tried to follow. Meanwhile, in the castle, the giant pink lion was still lying unconscious while Karos played on its belly. Carol noticed a flash of pink energy. The beast knocked the girl off the lion's body. She took a direct hit and slammed into a castle wall. Cain ran to the lion's body, eager to take the shards, and the beast struck the lion with its tendrils. It needed 2 more lives to be freed. The monster grasped the lion's heart. Cain angrily demanded his body be released, but the captor refused mockingly, saying he'd finally found a body. The captive clung to his freedom desperately. The beast roared, demanding the body obey. Cain tried to resist, but his strength was running out. Shiro chased the monster and attacked again with his sword, slicing off the beast's limbs. The knight with the icy gaze wished death on his enemy. The beast admitted the warrior's strength, but mocked him. Playtime is over. Dark energy grasped the lion's heart, and the beast freed itself surrounded by a purple aura. Shiro stared in shock at what was happening. A huge explosion shook the ground. Debris flew everywhere, and a dreadful laugh echoed from the dust clouds. Something laughed bitterly and gloatingly, enjoying the chaos. He felt power taking hold of the world again. The fire beast unleashed its rage, looming over the knight, who tried in terror to understand what was happening. Flames devoured everything around, and the beast declared its return to the world. Shiro realized this was no longer Cain and asked its identity. It replied that it didn't matter because he would die here. It summoned a demonic fire technique, and a powerful explosion shook the ground. A 9-headed fire beast appeared. The 9-headed dragon awakened. The beast opened its massive of jaws ready to attack, its scales glittering with threatening energy. Shiro leaped high to assess the situation from above, but suddenly was surrounded by the multi-headed dragon, bearing its fangs. With an angry cry, the warrior swung his magic-charged sword, a powerful strike cleaving the air toward the enemy. The dragons roared, ready to attack, and a strong blast formed when the attack wave hit the dragons' heads. From the shock wave, Shiro was also thrown back. As the youth landed, a fire golem approached and attacked him with tremendous force, driving Shiro into the ground at high speed. The impression was the attack didn't affect the youth much. The fire monster came at him again, so Shiro summoned a protective barrier, reflecting the fierce attack. The fire golem advanced, aiming another blow at the enemy. The knight's armor cracked, and he was thrown aside, colliding with a wall. The knight gritted his teeth in anger. Suddenly, the priestess appeared. She was worried and said the strongest knight was in such bad shape. Shiro sighed deeply. He hadn't fully grasped the golem's strength. The fire monster mocked the miserable humans and the girl, saying she had come to die with him. The sorceress, however, defied the brute force, because it didn't always mean justice, and she resolved to follow fate's threads to shorten the path to victory. The golem turned its attention to the priestess, where it noticed a cursed magic symbol. Cain was entangled by red threads like a puppet imprisoned inside his mind. The price of power was to become a forgotten puppet to everyone. He growled, rejecting that fate, and tried to remember why he'd come this far. A memory flashed in the warrior's eyes, a girl dreaming of a strong husband and a happy marriage. He swore to protect her from all dangers. The loyal knight protected the girl from threats, and after a while became a hero standing at the empire's peak beside his beloved. In a flash of rage, he remembered the betrayal and the promise he once made. His goal was the top of the empire at any cost. Cain vowed to crush anyone in his path. The restraints that bound him faded, and Cain's image appeared in the golem's eyes. Cain was trying to resist and regain control of his body. The loyal knight had to reclaim his former name. The fire monster was stunned by his awakening, then told him that resisting kings was something that hadn't happened before, and the knight ordered whoever he was to leave his body. Shiro and the priestess watched this inner struggle. The priestess said she removed some threads, and the rest depended on Cain. The knight expelled the creature from his body, but the beast didn't give up, and seemed ready to unleash its rage on anyone who got in its way. The flame-clad knight fought desperately. The dark-haired girl wanted to help stop the fight. The priestess suggested the knight use the artifact's power. The hero was ready to risk everything to win, feeling around for the dagger's hilt. Shiro felt nothing. The youth realized the artifact was gone. The blade was lost among the rubble. Meanwhile, Cain was trying to drive out the fire beast, and it was clear the lord was struggling to deal with it. "The game is over," a sinister voice came. "It's time to get serious." The burning knight realized in horror the end was near. The explosion shook the city walls, and the monster regained full control of the body after quashing the internal rebellion. Shiro frantically searched for the missing dagger, baffled where it had fallen. A voice thundered, asking, "Did you understand, human? An ancient evil is waking from a dark slumber of 1,000 years. Shiro had to act fast. The youth used the protective barrier again to block the golem's attack, but it soon began to crack, then shattered. The hero screamed in pain, sent flying by the blow. The fire giant mocked the frailty of humans before the king's wrath. Shiro rose to his feet, repeating that he was no longer human, at least not anymore. The fire monster raised an eyebrow in surprise. The giant hadn't expected such a response. Shiro had called himself the Wandering Soul since his awakening. The warrior's shining eyes ignited with fierce energy, and a veil of shadow descended on the enemy. The fire beast didn't realize what was happening. The knight attacked the fire giant. The golem sharply turned toward him to parry the blow. The knight landed a crushing strike, stunning the enemy with a variety of techniques. The fire golem hurled the troublesome youth far away. Shiro realized a long fight was undesirable, and things had to end quickly. The knight ran angrily through the ruined streets, searching for the artifact. Shiro saw his dagger glinting in the distance, but it was far away. The knight was glad to see the shard. The golem looked around for the annoying knight and spotted something on the horizon. The shard and the man running toward it. That was exactly what the monster needed to unleash its amazing power. The fire beast would not allow the last shard to be stolen. The knight was one step from the blade, but suddenly he noticed the golem was also rapidly closing in on the artifact. A sharp flash lit the youth's face, and the monster shoved him away. The knight was thrown backward by the explosion, and he fell, grinding his teeth in anger. This was the last shard the villain had found. Finally, the fire monster could show its true power. A huge explosion occurred, and the golem disappeared. The stakes rose for our hero. The villain had found real power and yearned to dominate the world. Our hero challenged a powerful foe, but the golem drew near, declaring he would not let it happen. The scene shifted to a cell in Lind Castle. The priestess spoke of fate. Everything in this world has a beginning and an end. She cast a spell near the shattered vial. Cain felt someone else intervening, and with an angry cry he unleashed a purple flame. The brave knight would not back down. The demon triumphed, mocking humans, and suddenly his hand changed color. Shiro resisted fiercely, refusing to give up. The knight tried over and over to overcome the fire golem, but the demon said that however determined the hero was, once the fusion was complete, he would be the first to die. At this point, Cain regained consciousness and began resisting the monster, which started lashing out at itself. The knight realized the monster was Cain, who attacked with renewed force. The knight swore revenge for the attempt to take his body. The weakened monster opened a gap in its defense, and Shiro saw his chance to win. At that moment, he remembered a conversation. The knight listened silently to the princess as she asked if he was ready to serve and protect the people and fight for glory. Her sharp gaze was full of guile as she asked, "Are you ready for that?" The knight declared decisively that he was ready to do anything for his ideals, and he stepped forward confidently, never wavering from his goal. Shiro refused to break his vow and threw himself back into the fight against the monster, but not for the princess. The hardest blow rained down on the enemy, and the city shook with the impact. Buildings collapsed, sending up clouds of dust. The fire monster blocked the attack, but unfortunately dropped a shard. Shiro managed to pull the shard out before it fully synced with the monster, which couldn't defend while enraged and wouldn't let the hero take it. The monster's look saw a danger approaching, another strike to its face. The tormented Cain demanded the demon be expelled from his body. Shiro coughed blood and his strength flagged. Betrayed. Why did he keep fighting with his last strength? Natsu crossed his mind, and he wondered if she wasn't the only one he loved. The knight resolved and swore to himself, "I won't lose this time." Shiro summoned the purple flame. A purple beam shot into the sky and filled the young man with a violet glow. The fire beast realized things were bad. Shiro was now brimming with energy. The mysterious advisor still watched. His plan, which had required great effort from a mysterious person, had failed. The priestess also noticed the purple column of energy and was glad Shiro had managed to awaken the power of the relic, saying he had made the right choice by choosing it. The hero filled with savage power, and the transformation was about to complete. The sync succeeded, and Shiro became unrecognizable. "It's over," came an icy voice. A face burned on one cheek twitched with a grim design. During this time, Cain continued fighting for control of his body. The Lord groaned in pain, and containing the blazing monster's rage became increasingly difficult. The warrior realized the heart was its weakness. "I'm counting on you," he said to the hero. A shining blade cut through the air. The monster roared, "You pathetic creature, you're in my way." The monster had 6 shards while the young man had only 1. Did he really hope to win this fight? Shiro accepted the challenge. Remembering past battles he'd won, Shiro charged. A demonic strike fell on the enemy, and the purple energy tore through the air. The fire demon concentrated its power and sent a fiery vortex at the knight. Blows collided and huge explosions echoed through the city streets. Is that really all the fire monster can do? The knight attacked with a purple blade. The fire monster blocked the strike and warned that the magic would consume the young man, and he wouldn't be able to control it. But Shiro didn't want to hear the warnings despite the pain he felt and rushed at the beast, saying he came from a poor family. He had been small, weak, and helpless. If someone gave up easily, they wouldn't have come this far. The knight surged forward, refusing to surrender. A mass of dark energy burst from his hand and accelerated dramatically, stunning the enemy. A fiery aura wrapped the golem to protect it. The knight unleashed his power with hatred, saying he carried many hopes on his back, and with a powerful thrust staggered his opponent. The fire demon felt the knight's strength in every part of his body. The monster flew back, and Shiro stayed steady in a final attack stance. Then he remembered. The queen had given him the title of knight. He accepted her blessing with bowed head. After becoming strong, he would destroy the world, but not the way he had imagined. The sky filled with storm clouds, and a crimson rose bloomed under the pouring rain. The fire monster collapsed onto the wet pavement stones, its surrounding flames trembling and pulsing. Magical energy gathered into a purple crystal. Lord Cain was regaining consciousness. The defeated foe lay under the rain. The knight stepped forward and kicked the man on the ground. "Don't play dead," Shiro said as he looked at Cain. Then he added bitterly, "Look at what you've done." The ruined city was shrouded in smoke under a gray sky. The defeated man growled. "I never lost to you," the knight replied. "You're the reason this fight broke out in the first place." He was so exhausted he could barely stand. Then Cain said that hell had deceived him and told him that if he gathered the magical weapons he would be the strongest in the world, and never mentioned the side effects. The name was familiar to the hero, so he asked if he meant the scoundrel with the chain. Cain spoke sadly and ignored the hero's question that he would die or lose control again in order to take revenge on that scoundrel. The knight tore between death and revenge. Mocking laughter heralded more trouble. Under the rain, the priestess came to comfort him. In the arms of the stranger, the knight saw his beloved. Lord Cain spoke words of gratitude. The dark-haired girl hinted that his life had begun with that girl, so it must end with her. The knight decided to stay with the girl until the end. He gently embraced Aisha and whispered her name sadly under the rain and among the ruins. The priestess and Shiro discussed their defeated enemy. The priestess said he was a victim of fate. The hero blamed him for what happened. He was a victim of greed that granted him power. Shiro stepped forward and picked up a shard of the relic. The priestess said that one of the 7 magical weapons was extremely powerful. This purple-flamed blade is a magic weapon capable of destroying a city with a single strike. Fortunately, it was stopped in time. Suddenly, a strange sound was heard, and at the same second red, blood-like energy shot forward. Shiro dodged the blow, shocked by its power. A mysterious stranger in a cloak with burning eyes appeared. The dark-haired girl tried to grab the blade, but the masked man threw her to the ground and snatched the relic first. The mysterious sorcerer had gotten what he wanted. The angry knight tried to take the relic back and fired a magic strike at the opponent, but he blocked it with his magic chains. The dark figure mocked the weak knight and shoved Shiro away. The warrior's face ignited with anger. He was determined to fight and told him not to mess with him. Shiro shouted and unleashed a powerful magic blow at the enemy. The massive attack, containing the power of the Demon King, shook the air. The pink chains shattered under the blade's pressure. The enemy watched the scene in horror. The sorcerer barely dodged the attack. With a faint laugh, he recalled the greatness of his former foe. The power of the King of Knights began to fade, and he stared at his enemy in despair. The exhausted knight realized his helplessness. The dark sorcerer, who craved to continue the game, ended the fight quickly. So, this is where it all starts. The woman spoke the name Ravis angrily. An ominous voice came from beneath the hood. That foolish Messias has gone on long enough. You'll regret betraying me one day, she said. The priestess said, Ravis, you're the one who will be defeated, doomed to be defeated by the man who despises you. With gloating, the sorceress said she looked forward to that, and soon the king would awaken. Let's see how humans can stop him. The dark sorcerer passed through the gate and vanished, leaving the two in the ruined street. Shiro slammed his fist into the ground. There was nothing he could do. He was too weak and needed time to recover. Was the battle over? Shiro wondered if the priestess knew that sorcerer. In fact, they had known each other for a very long time. Shiro boiled with anger. The priestess should have warned him to prepare and not lose the relic. She replied that he was barely standing, despite fighting a magical warrior alone, so he needed to calm down. Shiro was about to protest as he gripped the priestess's arm tightly, but at that moment a familiar voice was heard. The boy asked the priestess to tell him any information she had. Lady Messias had not expected the sorcerer to return so quickly, and had underestimated the situation. Carol ran at full speed toward her brother. Carol had been very frightened after fighting the lion. She ran to Shiro and asked him to reassure her. Shiro held her and said that as long as he was with her, he wouldn't let anyone hurt her. He turned to the priestess again and demanded she tell him everything she knew today. Messias agreed. Carol began to get hysterical. She wanted to spend the whole day with Shiro. He wanted to spend time with her as soon as he regained his strength, so he told her to heal well before they played, and she replied that he promised. Meanwhile, amid the rubble, a little girl crawled out from under the debris. Seeing Shiro, the girl began to scream the name of their savior. Then people shouted the hero's name like her. The crowd came closer and closer. Carol and Shiro were the center of attention, but this time, it was different from before. Later, in the basement of Kane's castle where it all began, Shiro and Lady Messias stood. Kane synced with the relic shard here, she said. It had all been arranged by fate, and no one could escape its curse. Shiro hadn't come here for idle talk. He wanted specifics. Messias reached out to the boy and offered to discover the story together. Shiro was skeptical of the offer and asked if she'd betrayed him. He had trusted the priestess until she started hiding things from him, but she saved him once, so he'd try to give her another chance. They shook hands, and the priestess promised she would tell him everything she knew. Everything. Absolutely everything. Suddenly, Shiro found himself in an unfamiliar place. His astral body hovered in the air above scenic landscapes. He wondered where he was. The priestess appeared beside him. She had sent him 5,000 years back in time, to an age before civilization, when kings used humans as slaves. People were panicking, trying to flee something. A massive shadow approached. A powerful blow fell on the innocents. A hand with giant claws suddenly rose. The huge, red-haired king boasted about the punch that had killed so many. His blue friend found the game too boring. He preferred crushing them in his fist. To him, that was more fun. In that ancient era, before humans gained great power, humanity wasn't much better than cattle. So how did the people of that time defeat these giant creatures? They couldn't. It was impossible. Only a king could defeat another king. What did all this mean? Humans were too weak to stand up to kings. The only way was to exploit the rifts between the kings themselves. Make kings fight each other and take advantage of it. Only one man managed to achieve this. From the look in the man's eyes, it was clear he was plotting something. He suddenly shouted to Lord Chinus that the information had been delivered as ordered. The man's name was Ravis. What kind of information could an ordinary man have? It was all about the kings, how they set traps and tricked each other. Ravis told Chinus that the men sent to Highland Island had finished their reconnaissance. Lord Katron was researching sealing techniques. Sigos was furious to hear this. Who would seal him? Once someone fully learned the sealing technique, battles would be pointless, so they had to strike first. Taking this into account, Chinius decided to eliminate Katran. He would pay for that audacity with his life. Ravis stared as the king walked away. As soon as he left, another man peeked out from nearby shrubs. We should tell the others that Chinus has gone to cut off Katran's head, the man agreed. Ravis was determined to finish this. Shiro was told that Ravis fights kings. How brave, the priestess said. Ravis was originally a dragon hunter, but he had to adapt to the new reality. After a while, a roar was heard. Chinus grabbed Katran and threw him to the ground. The Blue King was shocked by the surprise attack. He didn't understand the root cause. Chinus knew Katran was learning sealing techniques, even though they were forbidden. What was his purpose? Katran tried to calm his attacker, saying it had nothing to do with him. Chinus didn't believe a word. It was clear Katran longed to destroy him. The Red King swung, delivering a lethal blow. At that moment, Katran shouted to Ravis, "It's time to move." Ravis wasn't far and had been watching closely. As soon as he heard the command, he leapt from the water and began invoking Highland Island's sealing technique. A huge magical seal spread across the water's surface. Chinus saw Ravis and was surprised to find him here. Once Chinus's attention was diverted, Katron seized the moment. The Blue King drove his hand into Chinus's body. Everything had been planned. Chinus would pay for challenging Katran. The magical chains shot toward their target. Could they really seal a king? Chinus himself had fallen into the trap. No one would let him escape. The chains tightened around the red-haired king's neck, giving him no chance to move. In an instant, Chinus vanished, leaving behind only a magical sword. Katran was sure Chinus never imagined such a day would come. Ravis wondered what Katran would do when other kings learned of his actions. Katran swung his sword, releasing a massive wave. When the wave reached the mountains, it split them like butter. Ravis was stunned by the sword's destructive power. With the sealing technique and the power Chinus left behind, no one could oppose the Blue King. Ravis pledged his loyalty to this powerful king. From now on, Katran would be out of anyone's reach. That was the beginning of everything. Katran spread his wings after mastering the king's sealing technique. From then on, even an ordinary person could trigger a seal circle if they entered it. Katran felt complete. Acquiring the purple flame sword meant Katran had, in essence, obtained part of Chinus's power. But he didn't expect such an act to open Pandora's box. Since then, kings began to distrust one another, trying to control and kill each other. Kings seized any chance, even beginning to use human power, granting humans some of their strength to help in battles. As more kings were hunted, human power grew day by day, until humanity eventually became stronger than the kings. It was only natural. Katran looked in horror at what his hands had sown. Ravis had waited for this day for a very long time. Ravis's historic victory brought humanity a future without kings. After Katran's defeat, Ravis himself became king of the whole world. Humanity cheered as Ravis crowned himself the new king. This was destiny. Suddenly, the young man realized something, and his embodiment began to fade. At this point, their history lesson ended. Shiro asked why they were leaving. The priestess replied that Ravis, bound by chains of fate, had tried to do something to prevent their story from spreading. Now Shiro must realize what kind of enemy he faces, a scoundrel who can mock even kings. A man came to the queen with information about a force that would interest her. He told her this man was intriguing and seemed to have his eye on her. After hearing this, the queen summoned magical daggers and fired them at the intruder, but all the projectiles missed, and the man didn't move. He said he had promised her that if she helped him get rid of Klein, he would keep his promise. Even she couldn't stop the wrath of the Barbaros family. This was very dangerous. Ravis calmed the queen, saying it was just a joke. The queen felt tense and vowed she would kill the sorcerer someday. Ravis said that could be considered later, but now they had to think about the present. He expressed confidence that they could build a great cooperative relationship. Meanwhile, in the castle dungeon, Shiro demanded more information. He needed to know Ravis's background. The young man asked to be shown everything by the Ring of Fate, but Misius only scowled at him. Shiro had kept his promise and collected the artifacts, but how could he fight if he didn't know who the real enemy was? The Ring of Fate said now was not the time to tell Shiro about this, and when the time came, he would understand. Shiro was annoyed that Misius always dodged answers using the Ring of Fate. She replied that she was just a lonely spirit and didn't deserve all this trouble. Shiro asked, "What about another lonely spirit? Does that mean I exist in a similar way?" After some time in Lind Castle, a sword leaned against a table, and Shiro was asleep in bed, but his rest didn't last long. Carol burst into the room, shouting at the top of her lungs with big news for her older brother. What could be more important than a good sleep? Lord Shiro would soon become the lord of the castle. The young man was shocked by the news. Many townspeople came to his room and began bowing to him. The people had decided Reno Castle would belong to Shiro from now on, as a token of gratitude for saving the town. Shiro put on his mask and refused these honors. People were confused and didn't understand why Lord Shiro refused. Wasn't this reward enough? Shiro took a deep breath and began explaining the situation from his perspective. He hadn't saved the townspeople or anyone else. He did it for his own benefit. He slapped the table beside him and told everyone to leave his room. He was no savior, and if they wanted someone like that, they should find another fool. With those words, he headed for the exit, leaving the crowd in complete shock. He would never trust anyone else. Never. A few minutes later, the boy was already standing outside the castle gates with rain falling on him. Misius was surprised that Shiro left the land so quickly, while the villagers wanted him to stay. What they really wanted was someone they believed would be their hero. Didn't the young man have any attachments or anything? Especially since he'd been here almost a year. Shiro didn't understand what benefit could come from attachments, so he told Misius to be quiet and follow him. Before she had walked 10 steps, a little girl called out the name of her hero. He turned to see who was calling him. Despite the rain, the girl managed to catch up to Shiro. She'd heard he was going on a journey and had prepared some supplies for him, some nice, neatly packed muffins. Shiro was pleased by the gesture and accepted the gift gratefully. She said she would pray for Lord Shiro's safety, and he, in return, promised to pray for her good luck. On that kind note, they parted. The bread was a symbol of a good harvest. After a while, outside Levi Castle, the air was a bit chilly. Carol complained that she couldn't even start a fire on such a cold day. Shiro jumped down from a tree and walked over to the girl. He used the Hellfire skill of the night and helped light the fire. Carol was impressed by Shiro's abilities. In an instant, he had warmed them both. Now they had enough time to hear the real reason the girl came. Shiro wanted to know why she followed him. Carol said she really admired him. He was her role model, and she wanted to enjoy time with him. The young man didn't believe her and thought she was avoiding the answer. The girl said she was ready to say anything as long as he would be satisfied with her answer. Shiro changed the subject and asked her to hand him the perfume. Carol gave him a bag of a foul smell. He said, "I think that's enough questions for today." Shiro would discover Carol's true motive sooner or later. The girl was excited, thinking Shiro was the coolest and kindest young man ever. Shiro looked at the treetops, wondering what Misius was doing up there. The priestess was using the Ring of Fate. She had resorted to using fate to avoid the coming troubles. In that second, the girl's eyes glowed gold, and she found herself in an unknown space. Suddenly, she heard a cry for help. The priestess tried to figure out who could be calling for rescue in such a place. Suddenly, a certain angel appeared. He was angry at uninvited guests who dared cling to fate. He reached out toward Misius. The priestess was confused as she saw the huge hand approaching her quickly. Suddenly, a tree branch snapped, and the priestess fell toward the ground. Shiro noticed and ran to help at once. He leapt and managed to catch Misius before she hit the ground. Shiro asked what had happened. It seemed Misius had misused the Ring of Fate. She said she had awakened the sleeping king of fate who swallowed her. Shiro asked her not to look into fate for him anymore. Whatever awaits us if he doesn't like the future he sees, he'll destroy it with his own hands. Shiro always acts with force and firmness no matter the situation. The next morning, Carol woke up. Shiro was already up and had prepared breakfast for the girl. She thanked him. He then told her they would head to Levi that night, and Carol asked Shiro if he wanted to put on a fun show. It would be something very exciting. Shiro planned to turn Levi Castle upside down. Meanwhile, inside the castle, the guards were searching for Lady Nicole, but their attempts failed. The girl in the golden armor reported they hadn't found any sign that Lady Nicole had escaped within the castle. The man with the closed helmet was very unhappy. He didn't want to hear excuses, and said he'd order the killing of anyone who disobeyed orders. Suddenly, the castle gate seemed to explode, startling the man and the girl. Shiro and Carol, armed with the nasty-smelling bottles, burst onto the palace grounds. Interestingly, they demanded to be welcomed as the new rulers of Laffy Castle, and of course, how could they arrive empty-handed? Shiro threw the first bottle. It shattered on the ground, and a strong foul odor began to spread throughout the area. Shiro said the smell might be rotten, but it was made with love. The effect is incredible. Men gain strength and girls gain beauty, so breathe deep. Carol also praised the scent, saying it's the most natural of all perfumes. People panicked and couldn't breathe. It was a vile act to throw something like this in broad daylight. The man with the helmet couldn't understand what was up with these two. The girl asked permission to handle things herself. She wouldn't forgive anyone who polluted the lands of Laffy. A man promised he wouldn't kill the knight if she dealt with the thieves. Shiro noticed a knight approaching. It looked like they'd caught their first prey of the day. The red-haired girl didn't know who they were. but she wouldn't let them do whatever they wanted in Laffy Castle. Shiro looked to size up his opponent's skills. The boy dodged the attack and stole a purse from the knight's belt. The girl noticed it gone and screamed, "How dare he touch my money!" Shiro was surprised to find only a single silver coin. That was her month's wages for service, and she demanded it back. The youth tossed the coin toward the red-haired girl and said, "This trivial amount is worth stealing." The knight wondered if that amount was really so small. Unlike the girl, that man over there seemed to have plenty. Shiro rushed toward the helmeted man, wanting to borrow some money from him. The man noticed the boy approaching and immediately took a fighting stance, saying, "This won't happen today." He summoned a massive spirit to aid him. Shiro was impressed by this man's ability. The huge warrior attacked Shiro, but the attack was too slow, and Shiro easily dodged. The helmeted man saw the knight closing in, but there was no time to maneuver. Shiro charged at his opponent with a sweeping blow. The man could barely stand and needed help now. Shiro hoped the helmeted man wouldn't resist and would lend him some money. Suddenly, a rope shot toward Shiro and wrapped around his leg. The red-haired girl had bound the youth to buy time for her captain. She didn't know who they were, but she wouldn't let them do as they pleased. Shiro noticed there were more interesting people here than in Lind Castle. From their conversation, the girl realized he was Shiro. She didn't know what had happened at Lind Castle, but this wouldn't work here. The youth asked her not to be angry about what was happening. He was just playing around a bit. While Shiro was distracted, the man got his chance. He fired his signal pistol and lit a red flare over the town. Shiro heard the blast. Would reinforcements really come now? Carol was the first to face the support troops. She ordered them to follow the group in the other direction, away from Shiro. But if they refused, there's a tried solution. Carol threw another jar of the foul smell at the knights. The knights didn't expect the girl to have more of those jars. A flash happened, and the knights began to groan and beg for fresh air. Carol reassured the soldiers that the smell was harmless to their health, so they should enjoy it. The soldiers from every direction saw Lord Brighton's flare. They had to hurry to him to avoid reproach. Every squad rushed to help their commander. At that moment, Shiro cut the rope with his hand. He'd had enough fun for today. The red-haired girl was shocked by the youth's actions. He was the one who started this mess and now was running. For Shiro, it was all like an amusement park. Life is short and should be enjoyed. The knight pulled something from behind her back and, with a sudden motion, threw her sword at Shiro. The boy calmly dodged the attack. Shiro jumped onto a rooftop and began chasing Carol. The youth grabbed the girl in his arms and suggested they leave for the day, but Carol expected Shiro to teach that ugly girl a lesson. The red-haired girl heard everything and got angry because she actually had a lot of admirers. Shiro shouted, "This was just a welcome for today. I'll stick around for a while, so we'll meet again very soon." Carol was excited to play with these men more. Shiro and Carol quickly left the castle grounds. The girl shouted after them, wanting to finish them off here and now. Suddenly, another foul bottle fell near her. A flash of light lit the knight's face. Clearly, she hadn't expected that. Now she probably wants to catch these two frauds by any means. Meanwhile, a barefoot girl ran through the city streets asking for help. From her condition and clothes, it looked like she'd been mistreated. Lord Fang of the castle had promised a reward to whoever captured her, and the palace guards tried to catch her. The girl stumbled and fell on her face. The guards surrounded her. They hadn't captured her yet, but they were already negotiating how to split the reward. The girl didn't want to go back there. She remembered those days with hatred. It was impossible to return. The guards kept arguing over the prize. The girl gritted her teeth, and the air around her began to chill. Tongues of icy flame sprang from her eyes. The guards were terrified. They saw a girl controlling the weather. She might be a witch. As the guards scattered in different directions, each one turned to ice and couldn't move. The girl tried to run again, away from those people. Suddenly, she saw a bright flash of light in front of her. Lady Micious appeared right before her. The frightened girl begged her not to come closer. She didn't want to hurt anyone. The priestess stepped forward anyway and hugged the frightened child, saying, "It's all over now. There's nothing for you to fear." The girl was so happy to hear such warm words and apologized. Meanwhile, on the western edge of Laffy Castle, Carol was eating a bowl of noodles with appetite. Shiro told the girl to eat as much as she could before anyone recognized them. Once rumors spread across the castle lands, they wouldn't see such treats again. Carol was ready for that outcome. If someone refused to cook for them, they could force them. Shiro was glad his pupil understood things quickly. The innkeeper watched the two closely. Suddenly, a man came out of the service entrance and approached the innkeeper with urgent news. The innkeeper ordered the two to be arrested. They were wanted for the chaos they'd caused. It seemed the rumors had already reached this place. Something had to be done immediately, and the best move now was to flee. The guards spotted the intruders and wanted revenge for the suffering their stinky bombs caused. Carol had more bottles. Would the guards enjoy their flavor again? The foul smell covered the guards once more. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl apologized to Brighton for failing to catch the criminals. Brighton reassured her. The two proved to be very powerful. The girl asked to gather all of Laffy Castle's forces to capture them, but Brighton suggested simply giving up. The first thing they needed to do was find Nicole. The rest could wait. She asked if they'd let them do as they pleased in the castle, and he replied they'd be able to deal with the criminals later. Nicole is a real monster and an important asset. The girl agreed with Brighton. Somewhere near Laffy Castle, on the first day, posters went up all over the castle, announcing the search for Shiro and Carol. It's an exciting start, Carol approved, and said it would be boring if they weren't wanted. Shiro didn't notice where Lady Micious had gone. Carol saw her sitting under a tree, holding some child. Shiro and Carol approached to see whom Lady Micious had brought. This poor child, fated from birth to live as a victim. Even I felt sorry for her. The guards were looking for someone named Nicole. If this was the girl, Micious replied, the fate of the castle depended on her. The girl slept in the priestess's arms and mumbled about her mother. Laffy Castle, the great library. A priest walked through the church and gave a sermon. Soon disasters will fall on the world. By abandoning your ideologies and trusting God, you will gain salvation. This priest is Lord Fang, master of Laffy Castle. Brighton burst into the main room with urgent news. Fang turned. He had warned Brighton more than once not to interrupt him while he read the royal revelation. Brighton apologized, but he had to inform His Grace personally. Fang was aware of Nicole's disappearance and of the uninvited guests on the castle lands. Brighton was surprised Fang already knew. Fang said, if you two abandoned your ideas and listened to the royal revelation, you would have expected this as well. But now, enough empty talk. It's better to heed God's teachings. When winter comes, thick rock-like ice will form. Everyone will perish, and only the believers will survive. In Laffy Castle, Brancaino Palace, Lady Alina returned home. She entered her father's room. He had summoned her for an important talk. He told her he had little time left, and before he left, he had a story to tell. He asked her to come closer and said the Brancaino family was prominent. When the old man dies, the girl will continue to represent their family. He asked Selena not to be too hard on herself. He acknowledged the mistake was his, and he shouldn't have been so strict with her. But the girl, as a family member, wanted to keep fighting for Brancaino's ideals. That answer disappointed her father a bit. He knew he could rely on his daughter, but because she's a woman, a time will come when she'll have to face hardships. Alina reassured him nothing like that would happen to her, and the old man was happy to hear it and returned to his bed. At that moment, a man approached them, checked his pulse, and said his time had come. Alina told her father to rest in peace and promised to protect their family to the end. Meanwhile, around Laffy Castle, Shiro couldn't understand how the castle's fate could depend on a little girl. He said she must be joking. Micious understood him and explained that fate is unpredictable, and if she hadn't intervened that day, Shiro's fate would have been nothing but a handful of ash. Carol felt great sympathy for the girl, but Lady Micious asked her not to frighten her. Shiro reminded them their main goal was to find the ice hammer, and rescuing the child wasn't at the top of their list. Micious told the boy that this girl's body contained a shard of the ice hammer itself. The hero was stunned. The whole thing was very strange. Who would think to do such a thing? Those men in Laffy Castle are scum more than I expected. The girl began to babble, calling for her mother, and suffering nightmares again. She runs through a dark maze, trying to hide from someone, and seeking help. Suddenly, her foot caught on chains. She lost her balance and fell onto the stone floor. When she turned, she saw a huge hand reaching toward her. Lord Fang was holding a shard in his hand and claimed that his beloved lady had been chosen by the king. She screamed in refusal, but he held her, saying she should feel the royal blessing and accept the king's embrace. Then he stabbed her body with a large, icy shard, filling her with his power. The girl suddenly woke up terrified from what she'd seen. Translation: Lady Micious waited for her to wake. The priestess approached the girl to soothe her, assuring her that no one would hurt her anymore. The little girl hugged her new friend, crying. Late at night, lights were on in the cottage near Laffy Castle. Shiro was upset because he had to cook dinner for everyone and didn't know how to cook. Carol dropped the grocery basket and told Shiro to shut up and just cook. The girl they had rescued needed food. Shiro didn't like being ordered around or rushed, but he was happy to surprise everyone with his cooking skills. Carol was excited to taste her big brother's homemade food. In the room, the girl asked Lady Micious if she had been saved. Micious answered that it was fate, that fate helped the girl meet the priestess, and they were all just slaves to fate. The girl was very scared. Lord Fang had tried to turn her into a monster. Micious asked her to tell what had happened, and she would help. A sharp feeling pierced the child's body and mind. It hurt to remember. It was unbearable pain, and she didn't want to recall it. At that moment, Shiro and Carol brought in a huge dish of food, announcing it was mealtime. Micious suggested she eat well first, and after she regained her strength, she could tell them what happened later. Shiro set the table and invited everyone to join. Everyone needed to regain their strength, while Carol urged the girl to eat a lot. The girl thanked Shiro for his care. In response, Shiro approached and gently put his hand on her shoulder. He told her there was no need to be afraid as long as she was with them. They wouldn't let anyone hurt her, and they would take care of them. The moment he removed his hand from her shoulder, a mysterious glow caught Lady Micious's attention as well. Midnight came. The little girl slept in the same bed with Carol. Meanwhile, Shiro sat on the roof. Lady Misios decided to keep him company. She didn't want to leave the hero alone. Shiro was tired. He no longer wanted to work on the same team with the priestess. It was boring. Misios was surprised. Could the great hero of Lind Castle be tired? Shiro was fed up with uncertainty. He wasn't a perfect hero, but he wasn't pure evil either. He hated himself for it. Who was he really? The priestess said it didn't matter, whatever Shiro did would be judged. That was the natural course of events. But the boy cared, and she said that was fine because both of them were desperate beings, so they could only do what they could. That was precisely why they were still together. They had no hope. Meanwhile, the search for the fugitive criminals was ongoing in the city streets. Alina and the palace guards were questioning passers-by. They were looking for a young man and a girl. One man said he hadn't seen the girl but had seen the man, then pointed with his finger saying he saw the young man there. Alina ordered the guards to stay alert. At that moment, a familiar voice was heard. The voice asked why the guards and knights weren't resting at this late hour. Were they really working overtime and hadn't felt sleep? Alina recognized the voice and turned to find Shiro on one of the buildings. She told him she knew his real identity, certain that Shiro was a demon who had committed terrible acts in Lind Castle. Shiro was saddened to hear such accusations. Those claims were false. Alina ordered the boy attacked. Many arrows flew at him. She mocked them as weak tricks, and all he had to do was wave his hand. All the arrows scattered randomly. Two guards snuck up behind him. One summoned lightning, the other used fire. Shiro had no trouble grabbing their wrists and felt nothing. The guards couldn't believe their eyes. The fact that they could learn only a little information meant they didn't know he was the unbeatable righteous thief. Shiro simply threw the two guards. Alina noticed things were going badly. She drew her sword and summoned the Brancaino family's power. The Brancaino sword would teach this man who mocked Levay Castle a lesson. She raised her sword, which glowed red. Shiro was pleasantly surprised she could do something after all. The girl attacked the boy immediately, declaring she would not forgive him. Meanwhile, Lady Misios did not leave the girl for a moment. The girl was suffering nightmares again. She opened her eyes and remembered something, jumping out of bed in terror. There was a church filled with corpses and blood. A monster had slaughtered everyone to death. Misios asked her how she was. She answered that all her friends and family were dead. That man, Lord Fang, had killed them all. Lady Misios heard everything she needed to know. In the castle square, the battle was fierce. Alina used her nightly magic, summoning fire orbs. This time, Shiro admired the girl's power. Alina launched fiery blocks at the boy, yelling for him to die, and a series of violent explosions followed. Shiro was unfazed and said it was getting a bit hot, then tried to push back the red-haired girl. Alina chased him. The guards could only watch and couldn't catch them. The knight didn't miss a step. Shiro mocked the girl, saying she should be asleep at this late hour so her pores wouldn't open. But the girl didn't care about those taunts. She carried the Brancaino family's sense of justice and wouldn't allow what happened at Lind Castle to happen here. Shiro didn't understand why Alina still chased him if his team had set a trap for her and she couldn't defend herself. The thing that amused the boy most was the word, justice. What did Alina try to say by that? The word reminded Shiro of what happened to him in his youth, and he told her she reminded him of himself when he was young. Alina was angry. She didn't look like someone who would barge into a castle in broad daylight and cause a scene. That's not what Shiro meant exactly. Alina wondered why they had kidnapped Lady Nicole. She was their princess. Shiro laughed out loud. "Is this trembling girl a princess?" he said, laughing. Alina asked what they had said to her. Shiro looked at his hands, angry at what she said, then replied that the girl couldn't say anything. Suddenly, Shiro moved quickly and appeared behind the knight. With a quick reaction, she managed to parry the attack. Shiro kept pressuring, but Alina stood firm. Shiro asked her if she knew the girl was afraid. It was a deep fear, a fear the naked eye could see. The girl didn't believe the young man. This princess was chosen by kings and had nothing to fear. Shiro realized their minds were clouded and that they had all been deceived. People with a strong sense of justice are the easiest to fool. The girl gathered herself and struck Shiro with her sword, telling him not to mock her. Shiro blocked the blow and stepped back a few paces. He said that although the girl wasn't smart, she knew how to use a sword. Alina asked the knight to come down and continue the fight, but instead Shiro proposed a wager. Killing her was meaningless to him. In 2 weeks, the world would change, and her so-called justice would become a joke. Lord Fang, Nicole, even Brighton, all of them would seem changed. If the boy lost, Alina could do whatever she wanted to him. That was Shiro's offer. But what if he was right? The girl asked that if he turned out to be right, she could continue to believe in her justice without being affected by others, but she would have to be wiser. Alina didn't believe a word he said, but she accepted his wager. Shiro tossed a coin as a symbol of their bet. Alina silently accepted the mark. In 2 weeks, they would see how their supposed justice looked. Then Shiro dashed off. Miss Alina was exhausted after their fight. She was very weak. After talking with Lady Alina, Shiro was returning to the cottage. Suddenly, a flash of bright light appeared near him. Lady Misios, surprised by Shiro's admiration for Alina. Since the young man had some free time, Misios offered him a new place to prove himself. Shiro asked where, and she answered, the Church of the Holy Cross. Nicole said this place was soaked in light and blood, countless bones were buried, and many vengeful spirits cried out for help. In another scene, a nun carrying flowers prayed to King Antinos. Many people were disappearing one after another, and the woman asked for protection for everyone and blessings for those who had vanished without a trace. A servant emerged from behind the statue and asked the woman what she was doing there at this late hour. She answered she had come to pray to the king, hoping it would reduce the number of disappearances. The man threatened her, saying she would be next if she didn't return home now. The nun apologized and said she would leave the church quickly. As she left, she believed with all her heart that Antinos would protect them because he was a great king. Suddenly someone wondered if this was really the Church of the Holy Cross, and why the place where everyone prayed looked so miserable. They saw Shiro sitting on a tree and asked him to identify himself. The young man jumped from the tree and began walking toward her. In Lind Castle they called him Shiro, the true righteous thief. The nun saw the mask on his face, and as the king once said, those who hide their faces are evil. This young man must be planning something. You're right, Shiro said. The woman pulled out a knife, wondering his real intent. Was he really planning to cause chaos here? Shiro looked at the knife. She was unlikely to do anything with a toy like that. The woman threatened that she was a nun, but had trained as a knight. In an instant, the boy pinned her to the ground on her back. Shiro was angry. Can't you hear the countless sleeping spirits under your feet? They cry right beneath you. The nun dismissed his words as nonsense. This was the holiest place in the castle, and he couldn't do as he pleased. She wouldn't allow him to insult the king. Shiro clamped his fist near her face and ordered her to be silent. The scene was staggering. He told her to close her eyes and listen carefully, or he would kill her. The nun looked at him, not understanding why he was angry. She had no choice but to close her eyes to hear what he said. Immediately, she felt that eerie aura, disturbed spirits calling for help. Shiro lifted her, and he saw on her face that she understood what he meant. They prayed in this place every day, without noticing the souls that couldn't find peace. Isn't that ironic? The woman couldn't believe it. He must be using an illusion or a trick. It was impossible for a nun who worked here daily not to know about such a tragic matter. Shiro offered another bet. If there were many corpses in this church, maybe the woman was complicit in the crime. If he won, she would obey him. But if the nun won, she could do whatever she wanted to him. The nun was skeptical and said that even if she lost the bet, she would never betray the king. The young man agreed, but told her she would soon forget her words about loving the king. The nun asked him to follow her to show him the truth. They entered the main hall, and as Shiro looked around, the woman showed him their king whom they worshipped. Everyone entering the temple kneeled and prayed. Shiro didn't bow to any of them. He killed them. The nun accused him of insulting the king, but he asked her to postpone that complaint until she won the bet. She would soon realize that the king was the cause of many of the world's problems. The servant appeared again before the statue and was angry because he had told the woman to leave the church, but she had brought more people. Suddenly, Shiro jumped behind the servant, grabbed his head hard, and slammed it into the ground. Even the sacred tile couldn't withstand the force. The man threatened the boy, claiming Lord Fang himself was behind him. Shiro knew that well, and wagged his fist. That was why he targeted this man. The man ground his teeth. He would not forget or forgive this act. He summoned the power of dead spirits to help him, and they rushed toward Shiro. Did the man truly hope such a cheap trick would work? The young man used the purifying firepower to destroy the spirits. In the blink of an eye, all the dead spirits were burned away. The man stood up, and Shiro slammed his knee into the man's face with all his strength. The blow was so hard it made the servant bleed. Shiro pushed his face back against the wall, asking about the secret passage. The man thought Shiro was a fool if he expected an answer. Shiro gave him two choices. Either tell him where the passage was and live, or die, and let Shiro find it himself. The man laughed, saying his life depended only on his king, Antinous, and that the boy wouldn't dare decide a royal servant's fate. In that moment, the youth crushed the man's skull. He chose this path himself. The believer's body fell to the floor. The nun screamed, terrified, "How dare you kill a faithful man in Antinous' temple? You'll face royal judgment for what you've done." Shiro replied that he wouldn't mind challenging the king with his strength if the king came down to meet him. In the meantime, he asked her to take him to the basement if she didn't want the same fate. The nun realized he wasn't joking. She led him to the entrance down to the temple's base. The high priest had once used this path, but others were forbidden to go down here. A strange feeling rose from the place. Even the nun had to feel it, though she'd never seen a battlefield. She wouldn't believe anything until she saw it herself. They descended to the base of the temple, where a huge gate with angel wings stood before them. Shiro told the nun to step back so he could open the gate. He extended his blood-stained hand and placed his palm in the center. The gate began to open, emitting a frightening red glow, and red mist leaked from the closed chamber. The nun fell to the ground, terrified of what she saw. No matter how wretched or harsh their lives had been, in the end, they were all victims. Massive pools of purple blood, corpses, and piles of bones everywhere. A huge tree fed on their unfulfilled dreams. The nun covered her face, a single question in her mind: why? But the answer was simple. They had all been killed to feed that huge creature. Is it really true? The woman was in deep shock. She finally realized the king they worshipped wasn't divine or noble, but simply a creature devouring their bodies and souls. The woman was terrified to death. Everything she believed in was a horrible lie. As the nun tried to collect herself, Shiro decided to start confronting the servants of this false king. Suddenly, demonic clawed hands rose from the pools of blood. Shiro summoned a massive flaming sword and sliced through the demons. Legions of wicked creatures revealed their faces. It was time to show what they could do. Meanwhile, in the royal quarters, Lord Fang sensed someone had entered and that he had to act quickly. A horde of demons approached Shiro. He had been to hell before, so he could recognize souls like these. This world held no good. He could hear their cries of regret. Still, he had to wipe them out. He launched into the attack even if they were the missing people the nun had spoken of. He had no other choice. The woman couldn't understand the meaning of all this. Meanwhile, in the cottage where Shiro and his companions stayed, Carol was bored out of her mind. She didn't understand why Shiro left her alone, or why she had to babysit the girl. She didn't mind helping a bit, but she preferred having fun at the castle. Suddenly, a whistling arrow shot toward Carol. She heard it and dodged in time. She slipped to the window to see what was happening outside. A crowd of guards surrounded the cottage. Sir Brighton ordered Lady Nicole seized, and Lord Fang told them to hand her over dead or alive. The archers drew their bows again. Carol was shocked how had the difficulty level risen this much. She didn't want to fight all those guards. A volley of arrows poured straight into the girl's room. Carol tore off her cloak and wrapped it around the girl. If they escaped, Shiro would owe Carol something tasty to eat. She grabbed the girl and rushed to jump out the window. The guards didn't expect the girl to jump to them. As they braced, Carol softened her fall by landing on the head of one guard. Things were bad, they had to get away fast. At that moment, Sir Brighton blocked their path. He demanded they release Lady Nicole and used a summoning power to call a massive knight for help. A giant ghostly hand appeared over the two girls. Carol summoned a shield to block the attack, but the hand pressed on the shield and pushed her toward the ground. Carol couldn't hold out long against that blow. Eventually, the shield cracked under the ghostly hand's pressure. Carol was flung aside, landing with Lady Nicole in the opposite direction. Carol had promised her big brother Shiro she'd protect the girl at all costs. Sir Brighton approached and pinned her head to the ground with all his strength. Back in the temple basement, Shiro was cutting through the last of the demons. These demons were made from dead souls, but now they were gone. Let them lie in hell, instead of wandering here. The nun frantically tried to find a deeper truth in all this. She couldn't believe her king had betrayed them. That's enough for now. They needed to return to their companions who waited for help. But as Shiro stepped back a few paces, the blood behind him rose and spoke. If you just arrived, why are you leaving so quickly? Turn around. Shiro turned in shock, and the voice continued. You must have something important you wanted to ask, didn't you? Lord Fang's apparition formed from the blood, mocking Shiro with a bloody bow. Or should I call you Klein, the king of knights? Shiro hurled a dagger sharply at the instigator, but it passed through and only blood spattered to the sides. The knight then resorted to firepower, calling forth hellfire and launching it at his foe. As expected of the former king of knights, no hesitation, he sneered. But no matter how he fought, this castle wouldn't change. The great king Antinous would wake soon. Shiro turned toward the exit. He didn't have time for the nonsense of death. Lord Fang laughed loudly after him. When they left the main hall, the nun looked at the boy. She had seen everything with her own eyes, but still had trouble accepting it. Antinous was the king they'd always believed in, the one who gave them peace and happiness. The woman couldn't so easily turn her back on Antinous. Shiro wanted to show her who people had really been worshipping all this time. Meanwhile, too many people gathered in the temple. The guards found a worshipper's corpse inside. Whoever dares commit such a sin will be cursed for life, the citizens said. At that moment, Shiro entered the main hall. The guards didn't recognize the man in the red cloak at first, but one soldier did, and guessed that the dead man was killed by Shiro. The guards immediately tried to trap the boy. They wouldn't allow him to do such things again. Some even suspected he was behind the town's missing people. The townsfolk began to riot. Could he be the demon Lord Fang warned us about? The believers asked Antinous for help in defeating the monster. Shiro looked at the statue of the false king. He'd seen this scene long ago when he was wrongly accused and burned alive while everyone shouted at him. He clenched his hand, angry that truth always sided with the minority. In a moment, Shiro struck the ground and scattered the guards. Only those standing farthest away could hold their ground. The knight noticed something strange. Shiro leaped high toward Antinous' head, the king's smiling, mocking face. "We should show them your true nature." Shiro struck the statue with his fist, attempting to shatter it. He succeeded, and the statue began to collapse. It fell to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. As the dust cleared a bit, the townspeople saw a horrifying sight. The statue was full of slimy worms, but the most startling thing was the cocoon hidden at the statue's base. The nun couldn't believe something like that was inside. People felt intense disgust. As everyone tried to hold back their nausea, Shiro opened the cocoon to bring the light of truth to the blinded believers, but there was nothing inside. Perhaps the real body had been moved elsewhere. Back to Carol and Lady Nicole for a moment. Sir Brighton threatened to end Carol's life, but the girl suggested he not be so arrogant. She crushed one of her foul vials in her left hand, releasing a penetrating stench that enveloped Sir Brighton. Carol's stinky bomb was working again. It didn't just smell bad, it had a dramatic effect. Carol knocked the man down and then tried to find the girl as quickly as possible. She noticed Nicole sitting motionless. The girl begged not to be captured and began to glow with blue flame. Carol stopped trying to understand what was happening. Terror flashed in Nicole's eyes. She screamed at the top of her lungs and unleashed a powerful energy that turned all the guards into ice statues. Sir Brighton froze too, trapping Carol in the aftermath. Lady Nicole didn't want to kill anyone else. Let's go back in time to Lavie Castle. At that time, Nicole didn't know what gift fate had given her, and she would pay a high price for it. She passed the Genius Project test chosen by Lord Fang. Nicole's mother was delighted to hear such wonderful news. Now the girl would be stronger and able to protect more people. She fought looming threats alone and always won. Everyone was proud to have a brave, powerful defender like Nicole. It couldn't have been better, but that false happiness quickly ended. Nicole's powers grew, and she found it increasingly difficult to control them. She didn't understand what was happening to her. Lord Fang knew everything but pretended it was just a temporary side effect. He promised he'd take care of her and make her better. Nicole trusted Lord Fang completely. But the real nightmare began that day. She calmed herself, told her mind to be patient, and to trust Lord Fang. But in truth, Lord Fang preferred to finish off Lady Nicole. The girl's final mission was to die and be sacrificed in the name of King Antinous. All hopes turned to ash. Nicole was terrified and used her frost power again, managing to stop the cult followers. She miraculously survived that trap and met Lady Messias. Back in the present, the priestess noticed a huge blue column. Lady Messias realized what was happening. While Lord Fang sipped his wine, he too saw a flash of light. An ancient king was awakening at exactly the right moment. Shiro rushed in that direction, desperately hoping the two girls were okay. And of course, Ravies arrived just in time as well. Lady Nicole tried to hold something inside her back. An evil king was waking, demanding she unleash all the rage within her body. This world didn't deserve protection. The girl tried to keep the promise she made to her mother, to be kind and not hurt anyone. Shiro was already getting close to the scene. The energy from the glowing center froze the knight's hands instantly. Shiro miraculously resisted the frost attack and managed to break free from the icy bonds. Messias appeared and said that the spinal fluid of an ancient king had been absorbed entirely into Lady Nicole's body. They were trying to use her as a vessel to revive the king. Shiro asks why Messias was absent during the attack on Carol and Nicole. She had sent him to the church herself, but for some reason she didn't warn him about the attack. Messias replies that she had other important matters and wasn't obliged to keep Shiro informed about everything. The knight gets angry because Messias once again isn't sharing all the information, but the priestess tells him he'll understand everything when the time comes, and what matters is that she saved his life. Shiro threatens to slaughter the priestess if she plays games with him, but for now he asks how to stop what's happening. Messias suggests the body is ready, but the energy isn't complete yet. The magic core is still sealed. If they can prevent the body and core from merging within 24 hours, they have a chance. Great, another stupid game. Lady Nicole stood on her feet. An ancient king spoke with her voice, delighted at the long-awaited meeting after his return to that perfect land. Shiro sees that things aren't going their way, and that they must send this king back to hell again. The king looks at Shiro in surprise. The man standing before him is just an ordinary, humble guy. Shiro prepares to duel, summons his power, then rushes forward and sends a cutting wave at his opponent. But you can't defeat an ancient king with such cheap tricks. Antinous blocks the thrust with a wall of ice. He looks where Shiro was and can't find him. He hears the youth running somewhere completely different. Shiro grabs frozen Carol, runs a bit, and tosses the icy girl into Miss Messias's arms, who catches her. Shiro wonders if his friend will survive. She answers, she's not dead, so she'll be fine. Shiro begins to lose trust in the priestess as a companion, but at least he asks her not to let anyone near him die. Mesias promises to help Shiro and tells him he can count on her. Mesias flies off, and Shiro returns to Antinous. The king is surprised that a young man would think of others at such a time. Shiro notes that Antinous doesn't look strong, and that he's had to kill fallen kings like him before. Antinous replies, "If you're talking about cars, you shouldn't compare me to him." Shiro says, "Fine, time to see the difference between you two." An instructed jester, Sir Brighton sees Shiro trying to thwart Antinous' plans. The guard frees himself from his icy prison and attacks Shiro, pinning the young man to the ground with his huge spirit. Shiro is shocked by Brighton's actions. Sir Brighton pleads with the king and asks him to hurry to Lord Fang, who has long awaited his resurrection. Too bad Antinous really enjoys watching petty human quarrels. No matter how many he sees, they're always entertaining to him. Sir Brighton is also pleased by Antinous' return. A lot of hope is riding on the old king. The ancient king prepares to go to Lord Fang. This angers Shiro, who counters the spectral attack. Antinous mustn't be allowed to leave. While Shiro is distracted, Brighton rushes to strike him. Shiro notices the attack at the last moment, but can't do anything. He ends up skidding across the ground with his body. Brighton again asks Antinous to hurry, and promises he'll try to impede the youth as much as possible. The old king makes his way to Lord Fang for the meeting. Originally, Shiro didn't plan to kill Brighton, but this time it seems he's left with no choice. Sir Brighton will no longer let Shiro do as he pleases on Lavi Castle's grounds. Time to see whose grip is stronger. Meanwhile, another group of guards arrives at the church and are stunned by what they see. Lady Alina asks everyone to pull back. She wants to understand what's happening too. How did worms appear inside the statue? More importantly, how are they fed? One guard reports finding an ominous room in the basement, but no one wants to check it out. Lady Alina volunteers to inspect it herself. They go down where two more guards stand at the entrance. As soon as she enters, Alina feels horror. A huge cursed tree and countless corpses. What could this mean? The girl plunges her hand into a pool of blood and lifts out a stuffed rabbit. Lord Fang, was Shiro right? How many secrets are hidden in this city? A crowd gathers outside Lord Fang's mansion. Antinous walks the red carpet toward the mansion, remembering the glorious feeling when people bow before him. Lord Fang watches the approaching king from a window. Finally, the long-awaited king has come to the people. The guards ask Antinous to follow them to Lord Fang's chamber. It's odd that the Lord didn't come down personally to greet his king. This time, Antinous forgives him for the resurrection. The guards escort the king up the spiral staircase. Lord Fang is pleased to meet Antinous. At last he has waited a long time for this day. The guards step forward, saying it's time to leave the room and leave them alone. Antinous says, "Purposeful, smart, insanely ambitious, these traits are necessary for a king's servant. I like that." The king recognizes Lord Fang as his servant. The man humbly replies, "It's an honor." The king asks, "But why don't you kneel yet? Even a mere servant should bow before the king." Fang apologizes, but isn't there something more important? Antinous overlooks his servant's ignorance this time because of his loyalty and bravery. Now we need information about the ice hammer, a weapon fit only for a king. But the man apologizes, saying that opportunity isn't available right now. What does all this mean? The king asks, if Lord Fang didn't spend decades studying kings to become a servant. The Lord pulls a book from the shelf. Antinous asks him to speak more clearly. Fang says he found something interesting in the books he read. They described human neural structures and how to control consciousness. It's a wonderful book. It taught me that controlling one mind means controlling them all. Suddenly, the book falls to the floor. Lord Fang holds two wooden sticks in his hands and strikes them together, creating sound waves. The girl's body stiffens. Antinous doesn't understand what's happening. Somehow, the sound from these tools affects the girl's body. Fang doesn't stop hitting the wooden pieces, causing Antinous severe torment. Now King Antinous himself must kneel to his lord. The king isn't prepared to kneel, especially not before a human. Lord Fang strikes the sticks harder and orders him to kneel. Pain pierces the girl's body, but the king feels it himself. His legs tremble. Fang won't stop until Antinous kneels. The king can't endure it and falls to his knees. Lord Fang is more pleased with himself than ever his plan worked. The man deliberately used the little girl's body as a vessel. After all, if a beautiful girl is destroyed, all beauty in this world collapses too. He had injected that fluid into Nicole's body on purpose. It contained a dose of dark magic to control her. That fluid wasn't just spinal fluid for King Antinous. As a result, Nicole's body became the god's personal prison, and now the only one who must kneel is the ancient King Antinous. Meanwhile, near the temporary shelter of Shiro and his companions, Sir Brighton is stripped of all his power. Shiro kicks him in the face. Time to end this. The man was an ordinary fool and thus lost the fight with Shiro, but Brighton had other ideas. Shiro wonders how they came up with the idea to resurrect a king they would serve, a king they don't understand, a king they would die for. Brighton laughs at Shiro's words, insisting they understood everything perfectly. The inner circle knew that talking about a savior or king was nothing but a lie to deceive the gullible masses. Shiro can't believe what he hears. From the start, the king was their target. Serving the king? Who in their right mind would want to serve a king? Shiro suddenly realizes he must go to the mansion immediately. Sir Brighton is chained to the ground by massive swords, laughing and shouting, glorifying Lord Fang, and demanding to be shown the power of the king they created. Storm clouds begin to gather over Lavi Castle. "Oh my god, what's happening here?" Shiro says, stunned by what's happening. Then we see Misius trying to heal Carol with her power. Suddenly the whole place catches fire, and Nicole screams and calls for her mother. Misius hears her voice and says, "That's Nicole's past." We go to Shiro inside the palace. He's running, thinking aloud, "I always deal with people who set others up in conspiracies like this guy." He thinks of Nico and is upset, saying, "I'll never forgive you." Then the guards see Shiro flying in front of them, so they start shooting arrows at him. One guard says Lord Vang announced a reward if we kill Shiro. Shiro uses his power and attacks them, lands a powerful blow that destroys the place, sends the guards flying, and heads toward the side of the palace. Next we go to Lavi Castle, the Grand Library. Vang is holding Antinos and carrying it down the stairs, bringing it to a place with a spell. He stands by the spell and says, "Finally, after thousands of years, humans can control the kings and will take a new step." Statues start spitting out stones from their mouths that gather around the spell. Vang says, "Shard of the Ice Hammer, give me great power." Suddenly, Elena enters and calls out to him. Vang asks Elena, "What are you doing here?" Elena answers, "Lord Vang, I don't know why you're doing this. I thought you wanted to be a friend of justice. A person should believe in God with unconditional faith." Vang replies, "Everything is over. I need a power to oppose the kings." Elena says, "Because of that, you sacrificed a large number of innocents." Vang shouts, "This is war. Those without power will end immediately. There's no other way. I see you as just, that's why I won't stand by you, but don't interfere." Elena says, "I'm sorry, Lord Vang. I will intervene because this is my justice." She attacks Vang with her fire power, but Vang uses wind power to block the fire. He says, "What you're doing isn't necessary. You're talented but still young. You're not my enemy." Elena replies, "I'll defeat you with the pride of the Branchino family." She strikes Vang with her sword power, causing a big explosion. She says, "I did it," but someone calls her stupid. Vang uses Antinos to protect himself and says to Elena she can't defeat him. Elena is surprised to see this. Vang is thrilled with the power he has and tells her, "This power entered Nicole's body. I'm the only one in the world who can control it." He orders Antinos to kill Elena. Antinos uses great power and attacks Elena, hitting her hard and sending her into the wall. Elena falls to the ground. Vang tells her nobody will stop him. Elena is unable to move from the blow. Vang tells her what she's doing is pointless. It's impossible for anyone to destroy a plan he's worked on for years. He tells Nicole to kill Elena. Nicole uses her power and attacks Elena. Elena thinks, "This is the end. The glory of the Branchino family will end." Suddenly the place begins to collapse. The building crumbles and Vang is upset. Suddenly someone calls Vang. It's Shiro. He attacks Vang and destroys the place. Elena is shocked by what happened. Shiro tells Elena, "You're mistaken. I told you your opinion would change one day." Elena replies, "You knew everything from the start?" Shiro says, "I don't know all the details, but I've seen these dirty tricks before." Shiro goes to Vang and says, "The time has come for you to pay the price. You did something wrong, so you must be punished." Vang says, "I'll pay the price. I'm a king. Why should I live by the same standards as ordinary people?" He tells Nicole to kill Shiro, but Nicole stays frozen in place. Vang asks her, "Why aren't you moving? Why won't you listen to me?" Nicole looks at him and laughs. Shiro runs and hits Vang hard in the face, sending him flying, and says, "Scum like you call yourself a king?" Then Shiro looks at Nicole and finds her laughing. She thanks him. "Thank you for getting me away from that person. I can control my body now. As a reward, I'll give you a new place in the world." Shiro thinks, "No, I don't want her to merge with the magical vessel." He runs to stop her, but Nicole says, "It's too late. I'll use all my power now." Suddenly, a huge vortex destroys the place and exits the castle. Misius and Carol see this power, and Carol says, "Did Shiro fail?" A great force appears and starts to break apart, and a huge monster emerges. When Vang sees this, he becomes afraid and says, "I won't let everything I've done be wasted." He grabs his staff, but the monster spots Vang and says, You were here. It seizes him, lifting him up. Vang tells the monster, "Let me go, I'm your master." The monster replies, "You won't be able to control me." Vang says, "Antinos, I brought you back." And the monster answers, "Thanks, but I'll kill you." The monster strikes Vang with a powerful blow and finishes him, then throws him to the ground. We go back in time and see Vang saying, "Soon a catastrophe will fall on the world, and only one person can save us." Back in the present, we see Vang's head lying on the ground. Elena is on the ground with a large stone above her. She tries to lift it but can't. Someone approaches. It's Shiro, who lifts the rock off her. Elena is surprised to see him, and Shiro tells her, "You're still alive. You're lucky." Elena asks, "Did Antinos bring the dead back to life?" Shiro replies, "Yes." Elena wonders, "What will that do?" We go to Antinos destroying the city. People are terrified. Antinos walks through the city and wrecks it. Antinos says, "After 5,000 years, humans haven't changed." It lands and uses its power, scaring the people. Antinos casts a spell and uses its power on humans, freezing them all. Then it takes their souls and starts collecting them. Elena stands with Shiro and says she'll just stand there. Shiro takes her hand and says, "Don't be stupid, what are you going to do?" Elena asks, "Do you want us to just stand and watch what's happening?" Shiro says, "I'll go and buy some time. I'll contact Misius, she might be able to do something." Elena asks, "You're not even from Levi Castle, why will you go?" Shiro says, "I'm curious," and moves quickly. Elena can't move because of her wound. She stands and watches Antinos killing people. Suddenly Misius arrives and tells Elena, "Shiro asked for me. I came to deliver something important." After Antinos succeeds in killing people, it says, "I'm back again after 5,000 years." Then Shiro comes and attacks Antinos, striking it hard in the face. Antinos asks, "Who are you? How dare you hit me?" Shiro replies, "You still haven't died." Antinos says, "I'll die before you do." And Elena says, "So I let you go stupid to come back. You look like you want to die." She attacks Shiro with her power, but he dodges the attack. Shiro says, "I'm here." Antinos says, "I won't leave you." Shiro thinks and tells Misius, "I don't want you to join unless you're ready. I don't want many people to die."